Craig. Well, welcome to an April 17th edition of That Floats Happy Hour. Good to see you, bud.
Amazing. Good to see you too, David. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see a bunch of our friends here on the screen for a happy hour, some which have already decided to drink, and some of you are on the West Coast where it's only 2 o'clock and don't think we didn't notice that.
Cheers to all.
Yeah, no doubt. So we're at like episode 25.
Oh, we're in the 30s now.
Like that. Now I think we're in 25 or something, but this is a special one.
Yeah.
Not just because our friends from DeBello are here, but special for other reasons.
Yes. Yeah, guys, we're here to welcome Chris Morton, ALTA's new SVP. It's SVP of Public Relations. Is that right? Or Public Affairs?
Public Affairs, yeah.
Awesome. And this is an exclusive first interview with That Floats. So I just want to let you know that ALTA is trusting us to do a great job with this, and we will let them down.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This is awesome. It's a great way to get started here.
Yeah. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got here.
Yeah, sure thing. So, Chicago native, born and raised, but been in D.C. After college. Left Chicago, came out to D.C. and knocked on some doors up on Capitol Hill. Ended up getting a couple jobs for a House member and then a member of the Senate. And kind of the last 25 years I've been in policy and politics, mostly around financial services issues. And it's just been a blast. Ironically, I met my wife, who's from Indianapolis, across the hall in the Rayburn building when we were in our 20s. And this year's our 21st wedding anniversary. We've been together now 25 years. I've got 2 daughters, 16 and 13, who are native, I guess, Washingtonians now. But it's been an awesome ride and just a blast to be in DC. And I'm super excited to be a part of ALTA, the organization and the culture and the people that I've met, and you guys in particular. It's just been phenomenal. So I'm excited to get going.
Are you looking for more of like like a CNN, Fox News type interview here? Or are you looking for more of like a Jerry Springer type event? Because this is That Floats.
Because we can do both.
Whatever you want.
If you want to bring my third cousin to the table, I'm happy to talk about that.
So Chris, I grew up down in Florida, but I live in Milwaukee, so Big Ten country. So you're from Illinois. Which Big Ten school did you attend?
Yeah, so Northwestern. Unfortunately, when I went there, it was I think I spent most of my football seasons in the parking lot as opposed to the stadium.
Do they have football at Northwestern?
So they do now. They're pretty good, actually.
They sure are. Now, Chicago guy, let me ask you the most important question about Chicago. Are we a Cubs fan or are we a White Sox fan?
I've never heard of a team called the White Sox.
There we go. Yeah, makes sense. Well, welcome to the National League Central.
And by the way, we got to talk about the Brewers Cubs too. It's a problem.
Well, I think you've got bigger problems with the Cardinals. It's David's team.
Yeah, I'd say. How do you feel about only being eight championships behind the Cardinals?
Well, whose was most recent? Let's ask that question.
There you go.
Oh, Chris, you got left. It's charity. Every 100 years, you get to win one. So
yeah, no, it works.
I mean, we don't want to
Comet. Just show up every 100 years. There you go.
We definitely don't want to beat you up this entire podcast, but I do want to just apologize right off the bat for the way my Packers have brutalized your Bears over the years. Yeah. So let's get past that. Yeah. And I also want to ask you, you're in Maryland now, right?
I am, yeah. Just down the road from D.C.
So would you rather have a Maryland crab cake or a Chicago Italian beef?
Oh, there's Chicago Italian beef. I mean, come on. Give me a real comparison there.
All right. So I just want to let everyone know that we've hired the right guy for this role.
There we go.
Officially passed.
Awesome.
I prepared questions, but you've answered them all. I'm finished.
We're out. Okay,
nice.
Mic drop, right?
Nice. So okay, here's an ALTA question. what is your vision to overcome Steve Gottheim and his iron fist of rule that is how he operates around ALTA? But how do you see your role in ALTA shaping up going forward? What do you tell everybody what you're going to be in charge of and how you're going to lead us forward?
Well, the reality of it is, as I said at the outset, I'm so impressed by the team. Steve has been really just amazing, sort of trying to get me up to speed. So it's there's no I in team. I know that's cliche, but it's true. The only way we're going to do the work that we need to do on behalf of everybody on this podcast, as well as everybody in the broader membership, is to do it as a team. So I mean, that's the real answer, and I'm excited to be a part of it because the pieces are there in so many ways, and I'm really starting by listening and learning, and then seeing where I can add value.
Awesome.
Excellent. And let us know. Tell everybody exactly like what you were doing before for the life insurers. Sure. Give a little background on how you came to this position with ALTA.
Yeah, sure. So I've been probably the last almost 11 years with a similar size trade from both an operating budget and a membership base. It's called the Association for Advanced Life Underwriting. So they represent sort of the most successful top life insurance producers in the country, agents, working in a variety of spaces, life insurance and annuities being a core of their sort of holistic financial planning. And the thing that they had, and I think that had been so attractive as I thought about this opportunity coming to ALTA, is the notion of building trusted relationships in the business community, in the marketplace, and translating that ability, that innate ability, into building relationships with policymakers in Washington and around the country. And so, what I'm looking forward to is bringing the opportunity and expanding the opportunity, quite frankly, that you've built so well with respect to political engagement, but taking it, at the next level. And I know, David, you and Craig both have been, leaders on the TIPAC side, and I think there's just such tremendous, path forward there. Before I was at the Life Underwriters, I was immediately at Fannie Mae. So I worked in the business strategy team at Fannie Mae, sort of straddling the business units and the government affairs, sort of translating what's happening in the marketplace to policymakers for the government affairs team, and was at the Federal Housing Finance Agency, or board, I should say, the home loan bank regulator that got merged with Fannie Freddie's regulator before that. So it's exciting to me to get back to the business I was doing before life insurance.
Let me ask you on the FHFA dealing with the GSEs right now. It doesn't. This Mark Calabria guy that I've read about, who's the leader there, doesn't seem to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but doesn't seem to be that big of a supporter or a cheerleader for the GSEs. I mean, do you see any? It's on our agenda. It seems like every time we go to advocacy, we're talking something about GSE reform, and with the pressure that everyone's under now, what do you think is coming out of that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stars have to align in a lot of ways to get that done. I mean, that's been on the table for a long time, and it's a huge lift in the sense of, you're talking about, now 90% of the mortgage market with, the Fannie Freddie and the FHA. So it's going to be significant to get that done. It depends on sort of the posture of whoever is in the White House and what the makeup is on the Hill. I think right now with what's going on with the pandemic, with all the other needs that are out there, I think that's sort of down the road. But I know Steve and the team and Diane and everyone has done just a fantastic job staying close to Calabria and the FHFA, because there's other things that can be done, short of GSE reform, that are going to be important. And most importantly is just making sure they recognize what role this industry plays in the process.
Yeah. Chris, specifically about Calabria, aren't we going to have a discussion with him coming up pretty soon?
Yeah, so Diane is going to do a fireside chat with him on May 12th as part of the Advocacy Summit virtual, which is now virtual as opposed to what was going to happen in person in May. So that's going to be an exciting opportunity, and I hope everyone, can dial into that and submit their questions because these kinds of opportunities don't come along very often, and so we've got to take advantage of them.
Gotcha. And one thing I really wanted to hit on that you talked about before that we kind of glossed over about the leadership from Craig and I on TIPAC. I really think that's an important thing that we need to discuss, right, Craig?
Yeah, you really went through that too quickly. If you don't mind, if you could say that a lot
if you could
slower,
expound more about
also,
that'd be really appreciative.
And focus more on the importance of the vice chair and the duties of the vice chair.
Well, let me just say the sole reason I joined ALTA was because of TIPAC. How about that?
All right.
There we go. That's our soundbite right there. So
there we are.
But
I got that.
To talk
Steve,
TIPAC,
I grabbed that.
This is not a solicitation, right, Steve? Just nod your head yes, that it's not a solicitation. Thank you. Chris is really going to help us with a lot of ways to increase our donation base because in talking with him previously, he had an association about our size, but your PAC was roughly twice our size at least, correct?
Yeah, well, so we did it in two phases. So we had a PAC, which was about the size of ALTA's PAC, but what we also did, we had an endorsed candidate program where we had direct giving to members of Congress, and we put campaign teams together around those members. So we had about 40 endorsed candidates every cycle. And between the endorsed candidates and the PAC, we raised about $5 million per election cycle. And it was about, like I said, about similar size for sort of membership.
Is that sort of like a conduit program? So if I wanted to give directly to a candidate, but have it come through ALTA or TIPAC, or is that sort of like that where I get to pick and choose? Or are you saying this is our slate? If you want to get behind one of them, this is the slate.
Yeah, so we the board would approve the slate, and then we would publish that with the membership, and the membership would get giving plans, and then they would determine who they want to support and who they want to support that their colleagues in the membership are having events for. So that was the way that that operated. Kind of like if you think of Emily's List, something similar that they do.
Yep.
And it really, just really worked well. What was great about it is it really accelerated the relationship building process, and it gave us entrees to conversations that were really important. And of course, just like TIPAC and what ALTA does, we endorse those folks who were understanding of our business, supportive, or that were up and comers who we wanted to build relationships with to make sure they were educated.
Does that offset the amount you can give to TIPAC, or is that sort of, or a PAC in general?
It's an addition too.
That's what I was
wondering. So you can give a certain amount to the PAC, and then of course you can give. There's limits, FEC limits.
And we'll learn. I assume we'll be learning more about that as time goes on.
Craig, an example would be Bill Birding would be able to max out to the PAC, but then also be able to give directly to Maxine Waters, and max out to her as well. But then have both of those contributions count towards the overall raising that is being done for TIPAC. So it allows us not, I wouldn't say double dipping, but it would promote the TIPAC to be not just what we're able to give, but people individually.
Let's pause for Bill's comment on that.
Oh, here's Bill.
Fine example. I really like that. That's a little harsh, man.
Just saying, I know you and Maxine are friends, so.
Well, I mean,
acquaintances.
Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, and Chris, one as the vice chair that does most of the work, not only on this podcast but in the TIPAC. One of the questions I get often from donors is, where does my money go, and do I really have a say in it? So this is kind of an interesting thing to say. We've always said, well, trust us with it, and Typek's got a distribution method for it. But this would give more of a direct, I really feel strongly about this thing. I like the normal stuff I do for Typek, but this one helps me to really direct those. So it'd be nice to have that kind of a conduit for members. Interesting.
I'm not sure I completely understood. Does that mean if the board picks a slate, you could pick one of the people on the slate, or do you have to pick the whole slate?
The way it would work that, again, and this is, these things are developmental. I think as we think about this going forward, but the board would endorse a slate, and then the way we used to do it is our team would put together giving plans for board members, and they would support their sort of slate, their person on the slate, or the person they're building that relationship with. And then they would also support their colleagues who have those same endorsed candidates or relationships with endorsed candidates. So, it would be kind of a shared set of responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of personal involvement. Amy, great comment on that. So that's true. So, Chris, what do you do for fun besides raise money and hang out with us on Fridays at 5:00?
Well, I've got 2 kids who keep me really busy. So my younger one, she is a sports sort of junkie. She's a basketball player, and she's a golfer too, which I love, and she loves it. So she's playing on the Maryland PGA Junior Tour this summer, hopefully, if we get back to it. But that's going to be her first foray into that. That's going to be fun. So I'm her caddy. So that's my summer job. And my older daughter, go figure, for a guy who grew up in the city and never saw an animal other than a squirrel or a rat or a stray dog or my own dog, he rides horses. So I was the idiot who wandered through Rock Creek Park one day when she was 6, and I said, let's go look at the ponies, and the rest was history. 16 years old. So she's actually riding for her high school equestrian team.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah,
Well,
Andrew Acker that's on here likes to play a little golf. He's a 38 handicap, but other than that,
Well, I certainly am going to miss the Advocacy Summit. It's one of I think it's always my favorite trip. We've said this on several podcasts so far, that some of the ALTA trips are so much fun. I like getting together with my friends, but the flight homes from to ALTA 1 and Springboard, I usually have a headache for other reasons, but I'm super motivated on the way home from Advocacy. You just want to get back to your hometown and start, advocating, right? Start getting something done. So I always feel sort of a sense of motivation after Advocacy. So we've got to figure out a way to fill that gap here. Getting bored at home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as we're navigating this whole COVID-19 circumstance, it will start opening up again. I think members are now getting back to virtual fundraising events, at least with sort of the inside the Beltway DC lobbyist crowd. I've seen a bunch of notices around that. But we've got to think about, to your point, Craig, creatively ways to engage these members. And so that's going to be sort of first on the list as I dig in and talk to the team. And we also have a slot to fill. Nicole, who was phenomenal from, what I understand. And I got a chance to meet her as I was going through the interview process. Unfortunately, for us, she's gone. Fortunately for her, she's gotten a great opportunity, but we're going to fill that role, obviously, with someone who is, going to accelerate the work that's in that space too, as well, work with you guys directly.
No, yeah, she will definitely be missed. That's for sure. She did a great job with us. And one thing ALTA has always been very good at, present company included, is finding good team members that work together. And I think you're really going to enjoy the strength of ALTA. We told this to Diane when she came in, is the staff. I mean, it is the lifeblood of our association. We're a volunteer organization, but without our quality staff, many of which are on here. So Cornelia and Steve and Megan, and hold on, I have to scroll through here to see who else is joining us here. But we have a phenomenal group that you're really going to enjoy talking to. And since Megan's on here, I'll put you on the spot. It's kind of nice to have with her and Jeremy to have such a strong outreach to the membership from everything from social media to print. How do you see getting the you're not just lobbying, but it's public affairs. So how do you see using the ALTA machinery that we have to help get the advocacy message out, and also get the base and the membership engaged in what we're doing?
Well, it's a great question. So much of advocacy is about the narrative and the story, and what as I was talking to Diane and Mary and the team going through the interview process, one of the things that was so striking to me was, this industry, I think the statistic that I was told was 70 to 80% of the employment are people who are in the industry are women. The House Financial Services Committee has a diversity and inclusion subcommittee now. There's nobody else in the financial services space who can tell that story or have that data point. Those are the kinds of things that make a difference. Obviously, we're doing a lot, and Megan and Jeremy, around the good deeds exercise in the COVID-19 pandemic, around what our members are doing to tell the story of how they're filling gaps in the community and serving people. That's critically important. So it's really about finding those places where we can elevate the things that you do every day, but we're not talking about, and put it within the construct of advocacy. The fact that you're dealing with at closing things like making sure that child support payments are made, or making sure that spousal support payments get made, those kinds of things. I mean, again, all of that is relevant, and we have to find a way to package that and get it to policymakers, because that's the way you build coalition.
What can we expect on the next Tuesday, GSE ALTA event?
Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit about, what's happening with the guidance on Ron and now Fannie's remote ink notarization. I know Steve's here; he can talk about some of that as well. But just make sure that the membership's aware of what that all means and how that impacts their business. It's, again, I think part of thinking about how do we do the advocacy summit and convey the information and insights in a way that is virtual now, as opposed to the ability which we hope to have had to be face-to-face with some of these folks.
So I'm gonna send a meeting or a message to the chat group, or I'll just do it now. If you want to ask Chris a question, just let me know, and I can unmute you, and you can feel free to ask a question, or raise your hand on here like this. So, but because I know we've got some great members here on our podcast, and it's actually a pretty diverse group. We have underwriters, agents, vendors, attorneys, non-attorneys, ALTA staff. So, Randy, I know you had a question earlier. Do you want to ask that?
What question was that?
I think you were asking about state involvement and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Like how ALTA was going to trickle down to the states, and if Chris was going to be involved with that.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to speak today, but yes, you and I had that conversation.
Yeah.
ALTA has taken a good overall umbrella leadership role in working with the state associations. And we'll give one example, the remote online notary. actually go back to the private transfer fee ban about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We got that done in 42 states. Shout out to Nick, our former state senator in North Dakota.
Nick Hacker.
We did it first in Texas, like we did Ron. And then Hacker took the ball and we worked together and outlawed that horrible thing. We've done a lot of that with Ron. And unfortunately, this situation has sort of expedited Ron, either by executive order, emergency order, and at some point in our lifetimes, the entire country, state by state, but leadership under ALTA and being a cohesive umbrella, sharing information, being a resource, I know has been very helpful. Now, and of course, the next big elephant in the room is privacy, and we've all stopped talking about privacy. We haven't had time.
Yeah.
We've been talking about how we're going to survive.
Oh.
But when we get this behind us, then we go back to privacy and data breach. And it was
Yep. So Chris,
we had conversations about that.
Chris, if you don't mind, just kind of, I know this has been in the news recently, separation of powers and the 10th Amendment, what's been left to the states as far as letting states decide to do things a little bit differently than the federal government. How do you see interacting with the state associations on a national policy side as far as ALTA goes?
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations about this just this week. I think the first thing I would say is there are certainly those states that are always first movers. The bigger states, I think, Texas, California, Illinois, New York. We've got and I'm sure historically we have, but make sure we keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in those states, and where there are initiatives that have national implications, either negative or positive, make sure that we're engaged in a partnership with those state associations, going forward to either help defeat or help promote certain initiatives. I think secondly, from an ALTA perspective, anything we can do, which I know we have, or the team has, prior to obviously my arrival, to provide inside information, resources, tools to the state associations. We want to do that because, it's like, it's what is the phrase Benjamin Franklin used to say, we all will hang together or hang separately. We've got to be tied at the hip on all of these things, and communication is the key. So I know Elizabeth has done a phenomenal job staying connected to the state associations. I had a chance to be on a call yesterday with a number of the leaders on the state association side. So I want to do what I can to build those relationships, make sure that we are sharing information and able to not just react, but think forward before we have to react.
Is there do you get any sense being in DC about I haven't seen the news in a few hours about the re-upping of the SBA loan program or the Paycheck Protection? Is there any movement on that? What's your sense of, on our ALTA agent board yesterday, Maureen and Jack had mentioned about their experience with that, but I'm wondering, since it's dried up, what the prospects of getting some of that back?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that the funds get replenished. It's just a matter of time, and what the trade-off is for particularly, the administration and Republicans to accede to some of the things that Democrats are putting on the table. Their big focus right now on the Democratic side is public health, public hospitals, the needs of workers on the front lines, those kinds of things. And I think the initial stance was, let's just put the money back in the buckets and we'll deal with those things on the back end. I think they'll come to an agreement probably in the next, week or two on both replenishing the buckets and finding some additional resources for frontline workers and the health system. And then we'll be into the conversation about what 3.5 or 4.0 in terms of the relief packages looks like. And of course, as part of all of this, we continue to have a bunch of conversations on Ron to see where we can make some impact. Yesterday, Steve led a conversation with Senator Feinstein's staff, who had a number of questions, and as well as today with Congressman Pallone's staff on the Energy and Commerce Committee. So he's been doing phenomenal work and leading that effort, and hopefully we can get home on that, if not sooner than later.
Very good.
Yeah, that's pretty nice that we have a place at the table with a lot of those conversations. And I know we discussed that at the board call earlier. It's nice to know that our ALTA staff is very highly engaged at the highest levels of government with everything that's going on right now. I mean, we really do have a place at the table.
Well, and I would be remiss too if I didn't mention Emily Tryon. She's done amazing work in terms of building the coalition that's around this Ron effort, as well as just leading all of the conversations sort of from a lobbying perspective. And the coalition now is not just the real estate industry and the bankers and the realtors and us, but it's, the insurance sector. We've got a number of other folks within that. So there's, 12, 15 plus organizations that have signed letters encouraging folks to put this in the relief package.
Excellent. And we have a question here from Bill Birding. Bill, would you like to ask your question here of Chris?
Yeah, Chris, kind of want to know what your opinion about this is. Since this is supposed to be happy hour, and we've done nothing but talk about COVID, I'd love to get your impression on another topic.
Yeah.
That is well away from title insurance. I'm a huge Denver Bronco fan, huge football fan. We have entrusted our entire livelihood with a guy who we drafted that has come from a questionable university that we've gotten other first-round picks from that have not panned out. How do you think that Drew Lock is going to do this year as the Denver Bronco quarterback?
Well, I'll just say good luck with that one.
Oh man, you're starting off bad here with an alumni of the University of Missouri, and Drew Lock, who I believe championed the Broncos, which is a second-rate organization within the AFC West, to a couple victories this year. So, with a horrible fan base and poor coaching and awful players, he really overachieved. Right, Bill?
I agree with that. We keep drafting people from Missouri and expect things to change, and they don't change.
Definition of insanity.
Sorry about that. I couldn't pass that one up.
We appreciate when you hijack our meetings here, Bill.
Yeah.
No problem. You deserve it. You put in your 40, 50 years in the industry. You're allowed to interrupt whenever you want.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, Heat.
That's harsh.
Show a little bit more respect to the incoming ALTA president. So
you almost said for my elders, didn't you?
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Speaking of mock turtlenecks, we have a question here from John Hall over in Portland.
Well, the question is, being a Seahawk fan and living in Portland, do you know why Portland doesn't have a professional football team? Everybody says, no, I don't know why. And the answer is because then Denver would want one too.
Chris, Amy actually has a question for you I think she'd like to bring up. So here you go, Amy.
Okay, so first of all, I live in Cleveland, people, so you can stop whining for real. I don't want to hear it when it comes to the sports. This COVID thing is the best thing that's ever happened to the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. So
yeah, because you can't lose.
Exactly. I don't have to hear about it. It's amazing. I love it. Okay, so all right. welcome, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I have a couple of questions. For just a little bit of background on me. I have been a journalist reporting on the title industry for about 15 years or so. I started as an editor for October Research. So I'm the former editor of the title report and the legal description. I used to work with Jeremy. So back in around that time, things were going great. We were in a boom. It was before the crash. Things were going very well, except we happened to be under investigation by Congress at the time, and the GAO report was happening, and we had state regulators in at least 3 states who were going after the title industry. And we had really an uphill climb when it comes to educating both the public and regulators about the value proposition of title insurance and how we are so different from the property and casualty insurance industries. So I'm wondering, since you come from that side of things, do you think that we still have sort of an uphill battle to climb in terms of educating why we're different than the other lines of insurance? So that's my first question to you. Yeah. And then the second question I have for you is that, do you see any deficiencies right now in terms of how we can do better about educating the public or the media about title insurance?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amy. A couple things. So I think, generally speaking, having been sort of a 20-something staffer on the Hill years ago, and and the makeup of Congress constantly shifting as well as the staff shifting, education is a constant process, and so you can never take for granted that most people don't understand insurance generally, let alone title insurance. So there's a lot of work always to be done. Just think about the 2018 election. There were 100 new members of Congress elected. Not let alone how many new state legislative slots that were changing hands. And so for all of those 100, you have a process of education to go through. And the people who have been there for years probably don't understand. So you've got to really take that process seriously. Obviously, the team in DC will do that, but that's where the Title Action Network and all of that comes into play. Insurance, the people on the Hill don't distinguish insurance, life insurance, health insurance, title insurance. It's just one big lump, and so that's where that work is really important. I think as we think about how do we do that, it goes back to what I said previously. I think the Tell Your Story campaign is, brilliant in terms of what the strategic initiative of the board has now. And you can do it in so many different ways, and you've got to do it in all ways, whether it's the good deeds, whether it's the data, whether it's, how many people we reach, the type of employment we have, the jobs that we create, the importance of property rights. All that stuff needs to be packaged in a way that's simple and digestible, and people can then, relate to it. Anecdotes, though, will always win the day. It's always, you go back to Ronald Reagan when he was given the State of the Union years ago, and he pointed up to the gallery, and he was the first president to tell a story about an American. And every State of the Union since then, a president has done the same thing over and over again. We need to tell the story about those people that we serve and what we do. And if we do that well, we'll be strong.
Excellent. Elizabeth Berg, you had a question?
Sure. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So I'm really sad that we're not going to be coming to advocacy this year in May in person. What should ALTA members be doing to reach out, since we aren't going to be there in person right now?
Well, yeah, that's great. So, I think part of it is going to be making sure you're connected to our virtual advocacy summit that we're going to do a series on, with whether it's Fannie and Freddie or Calabria or or doing some case studies about what's happening in the COVID epidemic or pandemic, so that you can have the latest information. The second is, and this is where I've got to dig in and talk to the team and figure out other opportunities that we have. But I think one of the things we can think about doing is starting to reach out with our congressional liaisons and with those back home to members of Congress to just convey what you're doing or what you're seeing on the ground. What I've found going through the last several relief packages and in the previous role that I had is when we reached out to members of Congress and we set those meetings up, or phone calls, quite honestly, they were just so appreciative of hearing about what people are doing back home, what they're encountering, the barriers, the things that are being challenged. And that's how we get things like Ron into the conversation. So I would say if you want to get engaged, reach out to me, reach out, to Emily or Steve, and we'll figure out a way to plug you in.
Excellent.
This is Craig again. I've got a question for you. And I'm going to base it off of one of Amy's questions that she wanted to ask, and she posted in the chat room on the Secure Notarization Act.
Yeah.
I'm a big Ron guy. I've been working on it for years in the states we're in. I'm very big supporter of Ron. I think that's the right way to do it. We've invested a lot of money in the equipment, time, training, effort to perform Ron. And ALTA has spent a lot of time on the Secure Notarization Act and its efforts in the country. And along comes this RIN guy that I've learned about yesterday, which is new, that as of yesterday, this podcast in the last few weeks has kind of giggled at RIN or FaceTime, Zoom ability to notarize documents. In fact, we poo-pooed it and said, this is nuts. And in this particular venue, in the last few weeks of these. And now all of a sudden RIN is the thing now. And I'm afraid that now that the cat's out of the bag, have we just killed Ron, killed all those companies and people that put all the effort into Ron? And what's the status of secure notarization if we can now just willy-nilly notarize through our iPhone? And as you can tell, yes, I'm not a big fan of RIN. If it's coming, great. If it helps, great. But if it's a temporary thing, maybe I'm in. But I put a lot of time and effort into that thing. I think a lot of members have too. And I just hate to see this thing all get unwound.
Yeah. And I'll start by saying, obviously on day 5, this is not
your fault.
The place where I'm super deep and expert, but I think part of it is Fannie's probably trying to find a way to accommodate some of the marketplace activity in the near term with respect to the emergency orders that have been put out there. I don't expect, because it's not as robust and strong as the Ron bill or the Ron laws or pieces of legislation that are moving in the state level, that that wins the day simply because of that. The fact is the Ron bill is based on the standards that the secretaries of states have adopted, that have been very much worked through a process that has been thoughtful. And so, my answer to that is I don't know that we have to worry about its long-term implications on replacing it, but we should point out, the near-term perhaps challenges associated with it relative to the more robust Ron standards.
Appreciate it. Yeah, just so it's on your radar and that's something that title folks are thinking about now, especially, maybe in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Things change pretty quickly.
We have somebody lurking in the shadows here that might be able to give a little color to that. I see Steve Gottheim is right here. So Steve, do you want to chime in? Oh, there he is. Look.
Yeah, there he is. Steve's
I generally prefer to lurk in the shadows. That usually works well. I think to
and Steve, why don't you also say what RIN stands for, just so everybody gets the acronyms?
So it goes by many names. RIN is Remote Ink Signed Notarization. If you're a fan of other acronyms, you can call it a emergency video notarization, audiovisual, paper notarization, or my personal favorite, the paper prawn. But it's whatever process you use AV technology to witness somebody signing a document with a wet ink signature. As Chris said, this is really more about just providing a bridge. We know that the industry and COVID has kind of created a need for more people to do stuff without coming into personal contact, and the vendors are not necessarily all ready to take on the complete workload that you all have to offer them. And so this gives you guys outlets and potential outlets. The RIN allowance is temporary because it only is allowed while the governors have these executive orders in place, which all expire in the next month or so. So we'll certainly see where this goes from here. But I think that's the short-term bridge. Ron is the long-term train that we need to keep pushing.
That's great.
See, Chris, this is the type of high-quality content that you get from That Floats. This is why we're around, and also a little bit of fun too.
Absolutely. No, this is a great questions. I want to get back to the discussion about Missouri football. Let's do that.
Yes. Well, we're on an upswing right now. We got a new coach, Eli Drinkwitz from App State. So nothing but up. And the rest of the NCAA was so scared that they created this COVID virus to hopefully stop the season next year.
This is where I jump in and remind everyone we have about 10 minutes left. So if you want to unmute yourself and free form ask a question, feel free to do so before we lose control of this thing again.
Yes. We got a couple minutes for questions. TJ, anything you want to ask?
No, Chris, welcome to the industry. We're glad to have you. I'm so grateful to have your energy and spirit and have you join the team and looking to make ALTA more effective on the lobbying side. I've seen what the realtors have done. I've seen what MBA and mortgage bankers have done, and looking forward to adding some fresh power to the title lobby.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Let's see. I'm going to unmute everybody real quick, and we're going to do something. Hold on.
Oh, boy.
Let me get that. Unmute all. Okay. Everyone, tomorrow is Megan Hernandez's birthday. And I would love to wish her a happy birthday by singing happy birthday to Megan. Can we do that? All right. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Come on. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Megan. Happy birthday to you. Oh, that was awful, but great.
That's so sad.
Thank you.
Megan, see,
we really irritated. Jack Radican is very irritated at that.
Yes.
Shame. That was terrible.
It's horrible. And that's title insurance and not the opera. I mean, it is what it is. So, but Chris, this is, we love the staffers at ALTA. They just move mountains for us. And that's why we like to celebrate them. And Megan, happy birthday.
Thank you.
She's been a great supporter and really did a lot of great things for Craig and I at ALTA Springboard, the last conference we'll ever have, apparently.
That's made us famous.
Exactly. So we went out with a bang, and but it's we like to celebrate the people that really do the heavy lifting around here, which is our staffers, and with you and Kelly and Megan and Cornelia are on here, and Steve, and I know I'm missing people, but sorry. There's on one screen, I know there's like 30 people on here too, but just a big fan of everything that ALTA does for us.
So we should also just one last question for Jack Radican, because he's finally turned his camera on. I think I see why he's turned it off. Did they quarantine your razor, Jack? What's going on there?
Until my favorite bars and restaurants are open, I'm going to grow my beard.
There you go.
They open, the sooner I shave.
Amen, brother. Amen. I got the beard going. I'm with you. Solidarity.
There it is.
Believe me, my wife is not happy about it.
Yeah. There you
David,
go.
what do you say, David? Should we not shave for a couple more weeks?
No, I don't. I get a little splotchy, like it's like gray and brown and all this, and it's not a good look for me. It's really
splotchy's in.
Go for the total gray. Just total gray.
Guys, you guys with the beards, you get more Rona trapped in there. I mean, it's not sanitary. You don't want that.
You can fold it up. It's a filter.
You
That's
get no
right,
fun
that's
in
right.
there, and it's just
Big
worse
enough.
for you.
It's
Look at
N95.
Don Kennedy's beard. He's got a
Yeah.
little something going on down there. What is,
Don's very
right.
SoCal 5 o'clock shadow. You know, that's very 90210 right there. I like that.
I got grandfathered in. This is a pre-COVID beard. So
I'd like to give a
dating
shout
it.
out to Elizabeth Berg and her nice bangs.
Well, Acker's been growing his for the last 9 years, so, you know, because he's 23.
I could probably stop shaving for a month and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
I just can't. I've always, when I was a kid, I wanted those 90210 hair sideburns. No, doesn't
You were
work.
just combing it down.
I was trying.
You had like 3-inch long hairs from like up here that you were just combing down.
Seriously,
Yeah, I
there's
like it.
more.
That's good.
There's more bearded men in this podcast than non-bearded men. That's amazing.
There you go.
It's a good
Well-
observation. All right, Dave, wrap us up before we get.
I was
in
going to
trouble.
say, everyone, hey, thanks for welcoming Chris, and I hope you enjoyed your first of many That Floats appearances.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome, Chris.
This was awesome. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to spending time and working with all of you and having some fun in the process.
And,
No,
and
we
Craig,
usually-
where can they find this? Where can they find this podcast that they can then share with their friends?
Excellent, David. We usually get tens of views on all of our podcasts, so we're going to determine whether we want you back based on how popular this podcast is. You can find it on any of your favorite nerdy social things: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Now, Instagram is giving us a hard time because the podcasts are very long, so they've rejected the last 4 or 5 of them. So I've pretty much stopped there, but Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you can find us there. And I'll post this thing sometime this weekend.
Just for the record, I'm going to get my 13-year-old all over this and blow whatever, attendance records were out there.
Well, here, speaking of that, Chris, do me a favor. You said you have a 13-year-old daughter and another 16-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
You tell them that you know 2 guys named David and Craig who are starting a TikTok channel for title insurance dances.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
To see that.
That'll be great.
Yes. So you heard it here first, guys.
Yeah.
Craig and David, have you warned Chris about your little event at some of these conferences?
Jack. It's his first week. Come on, man.
You'll love it,
too.
Chris. Believe me, you'll love it.
Yeah.
It's
It's something.
famous.
So,
Chris, just putting it out there. I'm David's attorney, so if he gets you in trouble, just let me know. I'll take care of you.
there you go.
All right. We'll talk.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks all. Have a good weekend, and really appreciate your all's participation here at That Floats.
Let the rhythm